INSiiGHTS Sports Talk.
1, 2, talk that talk.
INSiiGHTS Sports Talk. Traveling the country for the biggest stories in collegiate sports. Bringing you the news that will impact every college athlete in America. From the Ivy League to the SWAC, Big Sky to the Big Ten, Notre Dame to Grambling U, Miami or Maine. No university is too big, no college too small. We tell it all. INSiiGHTS Sports Talk with your hosts, the coach, Mickey Clayton and Clayton Smith. They're bringing you insight on all the latest stories from all the biggest names in collegiate sports. Join us for the next 60 minutes for INSiiGHTS Sports Talk. The sports talk show of a different kind.
The mic is open. I'm your host, Mickey Clayton, the coach, and you are guests on this edition of INSiiGHTS. When the crew and I developed this program, one of the things we discussed was being flexible in our programming. We knew that even as we developed our shows, there were going to be instances where we would have to adjust our schedule to accommodate a hot topic if it came up. Well, after this past weekend of college football, one of the hottest topics discussed in blogs and social media were the guarantee games that were played, and even more alarming was the disparity of scores, or in some cases, the lack of scoring. We received numerous calls and contacts from our listeners who wanted us to address this issue on INSiiGHTS. So we will do what we do, and we'll discuss it on this show. First, we have to go back and once again make a comment on the overwhelming support we received for INSiiGHTS' first edition of our Legends series that featured Dr. Frederick Humphreys. We divided that show into two parts, and the first one has done so well it has become the #1 show on INSiiGHTS, displacing the Atlanta Classic show with the CEO of the 100 Black Men, John Grant. But for this week's show, we're going to have a discussion with Big Al about the state of guarantee games and how this is becoming a tool for the Powerhouse 5 conferences as they try to have the smaller schools vote the way they want them to in the upcoming NCAA convention. Or they will cut out paying the smaller schools to play them. In other words, they're threatening to cut out their guarantee games, which for some of the smaller schools, that will be a tremendous loss for them to be able to finance their programs. We will keep trying to prepare you for this major NCAA session in 2014 that will change the way you see college sports, probably forever. We keep fanning the flames for you, and if you are listening to your sports channels and your sport news coverage, you will be hearing what we've been telling you about that we told you about first here on INSiiGHTS. Okay, the rest of today's show will feature Punch and Counterpunch. We will have some original INSiiGHTS content where some of our guests will share their thoughts about guarantee games with our listening audience. You will hear from two highly successful and decorated athletic directors from HBCUs. You will hear from Lynn Thompson from Bethune-Cookman University and from Bill Hayes from Winston-Salem State University. John Grant will add his comments, and we will have words from the South Carolina House of Representatives, longtime sports fan and supporter, Mrs. Gilda Cobb-Hunter from the 66th District in South Carolina, and more. Stay tuned to INSiiGHTS as we take a break. Remember, you can find all of our past podcasts on our website, www.INSiiGHTS.com, and on Spreaker at INSiiGHTS, 2 Eyes in the Middle, and on iTunes. Spell out INSiiGHTS, and all of our podcasts will drop down for you to listen to. Remember, 2 Eyes in the Middle, INSiiGHTS. We'll be right back. INSiiGHTS.
1, 2, talk that talk.
I'm waking up to ash and dust. I wipe my brow and I sweat my rust. I'm breathing in the chemicals. I'm waking up. I feel it in my bones and I'm doing.
Hello? What up, Dre? Hold up, I gotta finish something.
Welcome to the new age. To the new age.
Talk to me.
Welcome to the new age. To the new age.
these guarantee games and that have gone on this past weekend have seemed like they have just stirred up a pot that's smelling kind of bad. People are fussing and complaining about it. What's your thought on this past weekend, Al?
Well, that September 21st, I call it bad day at Black Rock for a lot of schools because, you get 77 points hung on you like Savannah did or 76 like FAMU. And then you have ESPN making jokes about FAMU on national TV for the next 2 days.
Wait a minute, they were making jokes?
They were making jokes about, Urban Meyer's up 55-0. He's going for it on 4th down and that kind of stuff. And they're using the running clock. Which they did with several other games. I think the FIU game with Louisville, they had to use a running clock too. But the $900,000 in an FCS game and Urban Meyer, Ohio State being a top 2 or 3 team in the country, it just seemed like, why you want to really just, you're already up 55 points. Why are you going for it on 4th and long? What sense does that make? So I don't know if they were poking fun at Urban or FAMU, but either way, it's just it's kind of humiliating to me. It's already getting the 900, but, when the reputation, they kind of look at you crazy, like Savannah. Savannah's a laughing stock, for all the beatings they've taken the last couple of years for money.
It wasn't just, we had Ohio State beat FAMU 76-0. Miami beat Savannah 77-0. Florida State beat Bethune-Cookman 56-6. Louisville beat FIU 72-0.
Right.
Iowa beat Western Michigan 59-3. Mississippi State beat Troy 62-7. Baylor beat Louisiana Monroe 70-7.
Right.
It was just all the way across the board. FCS, SBS schools, and some of them FIU and Louisville. They're in the same division, but it was just a beating all the way around in terms of how this went around, and people just really kind of upset. And I don't know. See, at the end of the day, we talk all the time about money, and again, you have schools that need this money for their budgets, and so that's. If I don't believe there's an athletic director or president in the country that would schedule a game if they thought they were going to lose that bad. They might have thought they were going to lose, but I don't think they thought they would get beat as bad as some of these scores say.
Well, I think really what it shows, and I was thinking about it coming over, I think really what it shows is that's where you see the wide gap, what money can do for you. Look at Ohio State. They can be up 55 points at the half, and they're, and Ohio State paid $900,000. Look at some of the material we were looking at in our production meeting. They pay almost $100,000 to a team in basketball. I think they spent almost $1 million last year for guarantees in basketball. So some of these schools have so much money, but the bigger issue is that it shows you the gap. If Bethune can beat FIU, that's a one, and then the next week FIU gets 70 put on them by a team in their conference. It shows you that there's a wide disparity in the talent, even in Division I, which is one of the reasons those big guys want to get away from.
But Al, it's not all about the talent even. The money that they make from these games and the money that gets paid to these games, there's a number of schools that will not be able to function if they don't get this money from the schools. And it's not just the HBCUs. It's a lot of the FCS schools that have come out and said that, they need this money. Now, we've talked on this show and we've tried to let people know what's coming on with along with the NCAA legislation and rule changes and the Power 5 jockeying the leave. This is one of the things that they're using to try to control the FCS schools. The Big Ten has already said that they're not going to allow their schools to be able to play FCS schools anymore. And now what they're trying to negotiate is that the Power 5 are saying for their non-conference games, we'll just play each other. If they and the threat is kind of out there that if you don't kind of vote along with what we want, that we're going to put in legislation and we're just not going to pay you. So you end up strangling some of the FCS schools who need this money to be able to compete.
Well, it's not just the FCS; it's the FBS. You think about Troy getting destroyed by Mississippi State.
You're right.
And Louisiana Monroe used to be. So I think what the Power Five is basically doing, they're doing like the mafia. We closing all borders, we cornering the market. They're basically saying, look, this is our it's our time now. See, they're telling the NCAA, hey, look,
You're right.
So that convention in January is going to be real interesting.
But Al, we've been trying to warn people
Right,
and tell them.
right,
I hope
right.
that as we go through this process, that when that time comes in January and it starts to happen, that they'll remember that INSiiGHTS, two eyes in the middle, tried to warn them that this was coming. And that's exactly what's happening, because even when FCS schools go to FBS, they get more money when they play a guarantee. Right. And even Georgia Southern, right across the borders, just north of us, north of Tallahassee, they're in a position where they're counting on the money that they were going to get by going to the FBS with larger guarantees. So it's something that didn't just hitting HBCUs. One of the things that we talked about in INSiiGHTS was that some of the problems that hit our predominantly black institutions are the same problems that hit everybody.
Right.
And so people say this and they say that, but at the end of the day, this is all about money again. And now it's being held over their heads of the smaller schools and in this convention that if you don't vote the way the Power Five want you to vote, then we're going to vote you out. Like you said, the mafia, we're not going to let you cross the borderline. And that's going to cut off a lot of money and revenue to these schools. Now, what can a conference or what can a school do to put themselves in a position that they don't have to play these games?
I really don't know, because just as you said, if you're not in that elite group that has all that money, everybody is really kind of in the same boat. The Georgia Southerns and Appalachian States, Old Dominions, they may have foundations and all that, but eventually they have to play guarantee games too. They need those to upgrade. So if they're not going to get that money either, I don't know how they can make up that difference. I look at some of those schools like Louisiana Monroe, used to be Northeast Louisiana. Sometimes you wonder, shouldn't they drop back down? And I think that's what some of the material is suggesting, that some people are going to have to drop back down. Just like folks are talking about HBCUs, some may have to drop back down to Division II. The finances just not going to work. If you have to play through 2 or 3 of these guarantee games just to help your budget, I'm talking about the athletic budget, I'm not talking about the football budget, then at some point.
Well, Al, you said a point. One thing in football, the Power Five controls 90% of the college football money.
Right.
And that leaves 10% for everybody else. But even in basketball, you had the guarantee games that go on, and the institutions that play, and I can speak personally for that, having to go across the country, play 9 of them in a row. There's schools that play 11 games on the road,
right.
Trying to make sure that the revenue that they bring in from guarantee games helps through the athletic budget. So even though football is being hit right now, basketball does the same things. And again, a lot of times, the only time you see the smaller schools on ESPN is when you see the scroll go across right. and you lost by, like, I related a story with Xavier when Dr. Humphreys came in. And they could have beat us by 50. But they pulled the dogs out, and we were able to close it down to a respectable loss. But they sat them the second half. But they look for these games to be able to build the confidence of their team.
Right, yeah.
And it would be nice sometimes if some of the smaller schools can build up their own schedule so that where they can win some games and their team could get some confidence too. But to be the fodder for everybody else just tears your program apart. I don't care what anybody says.
Well, the financial realities, demand that. And and folks have asked about, you look at how some of these teams, the traditional team like Grambling, 0-4, and FAMU struggling or whatever. I say, but part of it, when you talk about the revenue that these football bring in, that revenue isn't going as far as it used to. And I think what's happening, even those bigger sports are getting cut, like in recruiting, scholarships. So I think it's really starting to show up, not just the 76ers. Look at, some schools are losing some MEAC schools are losing the FCS teams that they shouldn't be losing to or should be more competitive with. So I think you're seeing a drawdown in terms of, if you don't have enough money to recruit, you don't have enough scholarships, it shows up even against teams on your level.
Well, Al, even in basketball, you get a guarantee, but they also do things to help your team. If you're bringing your team to my facility, I can help you with practice stuff. I can help you with game shoes because I got a contract with Nike, so if you need shoes, I can give you 30 pairs of shoes. I mean, they do different things to try to lure you in. Now, once I left coaching and was on the administrative side, I understood a little bit better because the money and the dollars just aren't there, and it has to be generated from somewhere. So sometimes in basketball, they'll tell you, an AD may say you need 3 guarantee games. If you play a 4th one, then we'll allow you to use that for your budget. Or they say we might need you to bring in $75,000, and you might try to do it in 2 games that you know you don't have any chance of winning. Or you might try to spread it out over 3 or 4 against a mid-major where at least you could be competitive. So people approach it different ways. And one of the things that are going to happen a little bit later on the show, we're going to have some comments from some people to share their opinions with you. That they're going to give you their opinion on how they perceive the guarantee game situation as guests on Insight. Stay tuned with Insights. You can follow us on Twitter, on Facebook. Insights, 2 eyes where? In the middle. INSiiGHTS. Insights taking a break. Be right back.
1, 2, talk that talk.
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo-hoo!
Ronnie, how happy are folks who save hundreds of dollars switching to Geico? I'd say happier than a camel on Wednesday.
Hump day!
Get happy.
Yeah!
Get Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Subject so hot, it's even got the room hot in here. Big Al over there sweating, and I think Gerald Toots got his glasses foggy. It's a hot topic in here today. Clayton, we talking about guaranteed games. What you got to say about that today?
Well, we got to get to a point where these schools do not play these guaranteed games.
How you gonna get to that point? I guess you're just gonna give up your budget and not be able to reach your budget then, right?
Well, I don't know if it's worth the hassle. I don't know if it's worth the getting your players all banged up and the bad PR that it produces. So, we got to find – these schools have got to find a way to raise money without playing these guaranteed games.
Okay, we'll just take that. This past Saturday, the average payout was almost $550,000 per game. For that one game, where are they getting that from, Clayton? It's nowhere to come. Where is it coming from?
Well, what they have to do is they have to go out and fundraise. We always talk about – doing it. Wait. Hold up.
You done started, boy.
No.
You already
You backing up already. You backing up already.
I'm backing up. You got 5.
You got to go out. You have to go out and grow your program.
And how you gonna grow it? How you gonna grow leaves that big on a tree with bananas on it that big for $550,000?
Well, like it starts as a seed, and you got to go out and you got to start raising money through your alumni giving, corporate support. You got to increase your gate for your games, and a lot of these schools are not actually doing that. We've already talked about the situation at the University of Pittsburgh. I talked about them because I know about this. In 1972, they had a meeting where they wanted to actually drop football because Notre Dame and some other schools said that they were not competitive. They had a meeting, decided in a closed vote that they're going to go ahead and put the money into it to actually be competitive. 4 years later, they won the national championship. But they did it the right way. They didn't go out and play guarantee games because they couldn't. They were Pitt. What they had to do is they had to go out into the community, raise money through their alumni, raise money through the corporations in the greater Pittsburgh area. They went out and advertised, beat the bushes, got people coming to their games, and they were able to produce money to go out and get some of these recruits, Tony Dorsett and these guys, and then bringing in Marino later on, and that's how they grew their program.
Now, I'm just leaning against the ropes, and it's called rope-a-dope for a reason. The key that happened to Pittsburgh was they had a big benefactor come in and give them $1 million. So it's real easy to be able to say that everybody doesn't have a benefactor to be able to do that. Now, true, money has to be given, but if people were able to raise that kind of money, then they would do it. And the thing is with the guaranteed games is, now what happened when the presidents and ADs signed the players game, they had no idea their teams would lose like they did lose. They thought that they would be a little bit more competitive. But at the end of the day, if you get a $900,000 check, you get an $800,000 check, that goes a long, 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 long way. And you do the same thing with basketball. You have a certain amount of money you have to bring in, and when I was a coach, I was against it because I got beat to death. But when I looked on the other end of as an administrator, and you were coupled with trying to raise money, you squeezing fruit that don't have nothing in it. It ain't right. You trying to pull it. At the end of the day, if you don't get those dollars in, you don't have a program.
Well, guess what? You may be in the wrong division. You may have to drop down.
These got schools going up.
And they got some schools that will be going down.
If they don't have these guarantee games, and there's schools all across the country right now, to show you how big this is that it's the tool, it's the hammer that the top five power conferences are using for everybody else, that if you don't vote in what we want voted in, we're not going to pay y'all.
That's why you got to find a different way to do it, because these guarantee games are going away. They are going away.
They ain't gone away yet.
They are going away.
Until that time, we're going to have to get paid. You're going to have to make that money to be able to make the contracts, to be able to meet your budget. And if the schools could find another way to do that, they would.
Some of them are going to have to drop out. Some of them are going to have to drop down. Some are going to have to stay in their lanes.
Stay in their lanes?
Stay in their lanes.
You in the lane, laid out. Count it out. 1, 2, you in your lane with your feet up kicking like a little roach with your legs kicking in the air. Edit that out. I don't want to say about the little roach. I should have said damn roach. Then I know what it would go. Or Dr. Humphrey say sons of bitches. Them damn sons of bitches. This is Punch and Counterpunch. We'll see you next week. Stay tuned with Insights. Follow us. Let's hear your comments. We like to hear what you have to say. This will be a topic we'll probably discuss again. Insights, 2 eyes in the middle. INSiiGHTS.
1, 2, talk and talk.
Blow up last season. Every win. Every loss. Every headline. Blow it all up. Because all that matters is what you do next.
A short conversation with the athletic director from Bethune-Cookman University, my frat brother, Lynn Thompson. He's been there 22 years and has been highly decorated and very successful in Daytona Beach with his alma mater, Bethune-Cookman. He was the first African-American to chair the NCAA Baseball Rules Committee, also a member of the NCAA 1-2A Football Committee and the NCAA Football Issues Committee. He's won over 50 championships at Bethune-Cookman University. I'd like to welcome Lynn to the show and let Lynn tell us a little bit about his thoughts on playing guaranteed games, because he played one against Florida State.
Played our guaranteed games and met the most money, maintained a great image and a brand awareness in the marketplace by staying in the state of Florida, by playing Miami, Florida State, FIU, and other universities like that, UCF. And so it allows our fan base to travel with us. It allows us to compete because we know intimately the kids that they're recruiting, because there's a misnomer that we don't recruit the same kind of kids that the upper D1 schools recruit, and that's not accurate. We do. We just don't get a shot for them to come on campus. We engage with them. We discuss with them. We meet them at on-campus visits. High school, when you visit the high schools, of course, but we can't get them on official visits, Mickey. So we know. And what schools like us do is we recruit them just in case, and you've done that as a coach as well. When you see a kid that's destined to go to a big program, hey, if it doesn't work out, remember the discussions we had. And so we utilize all those things when we're talking about scheduling to make sure that, number one, we don't put ourselves in a competitive situation that we have a tremendous disadvantage at, and number two, that we're not going to put our student athletes in harm's way. And we've managed to be very good and successful in doing that the last 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, and you have. And Lynn, tell me, does that same philosophy that you apply for football, is that the same philosophy that you apply for your basketball guarantee games as well?
Yes, it is. Now, previously, several years back, in fact, Mickey, when you were coaching, a lot of us were just trying to raise and make budgets, But what I found, and it took me a few years, and it took me a while to understand and then convince our administration that we need to be strategic, was that let's say we hire a good young coach like you, Mickey Clayton, and as a result, we say, Mickey, you got to go out and you got to raise X number of dollars, and for you that means you got to play 8 guarantee games. Clearly, you're going to be at a disadvantage, and those guarantee games happen really before conference seasons begin, and so you're owing whatever before the season began. And when people look up and look at your record, they're saying, this guy can't coach. In reality, you can coach. You're just placed in a situation that you made money for the university, but you did yourself some disadvantage and some disservice. And so I just had to make sure that from our vantage point at Bethune-Cookman that we're able to accomplish the same 2 things. Number one, that we go into it with a competitive, a really opportunity to be competitive and a realistic chance to win. And then we negotiate to make sure that we are netting as much as we can off of this particular game. And so what we do is we use our art of negotiation. And Gilda Craig, our current coach, and I, we sit down strategically, plan out the games that we're going to play. One other thing I want to mention is that some coaches say, hey, we want to take the kids to a place they've never been before. Mm-hmm. Well, that, for me, is the 3rd level of priority, giving them a new experience. Because, quite frankly, a lot of places that they go to when they talk about these new experiences, they're playing a Kansas, they're playing a UCLA, they're playing a Kentucky. And while they might go into that arena there with their eyes wide open, the reality is that they're going to get beat by 40 to 50 to 60 points.
The last question I want to ask you about, Lynn, is about your thought on the major schools who are trying to use the guarantee games and the money that the smaller schools secure by playing those games as a tool to get the smaller schools to vote along with them for the payment of student athletes. And I know that that's a bone of contention, that the larger schools want to be able to have that right to do it, and they get outvoted in the NCAA meeting by the smaller schools who outnumber them in sheer numbers. What is your thought on that?
Well, my thought on the payment of student athletes, I'm against it, primarily because of the fact that I believe that college athletics is purely amateur, and that the primary purpose of intercollegiate athletics is to provide an educational opportunity for those deserving student athletes who qualify to earn those scholarships and participate to represent their universities. Now, the reality is that bigger universities have used this as a simple ploy for negotiation, and they've done it for years. They've done that in terms of making sure that they have every advantage to utilize, even when it comes to negotiating. They've employed lobbyists. They try to utilize and exert influence over smaller universities and even smaller conferences. And so as a result, right now you've got this divide between an elite number of large FBS caliber universities who are in favor of it, and then those universities who also who are not. Because if you say that, let's use football, Mickey, as an example. People are trying to a lot of large universities are really attempting to satisfy demands and dictates of student athletes and their representatives who are professional caliber student athletes. Those who could theoretically use the threat of leaving after 2 years to go pro and leaving a big-time college coach with no options other than to, recruit more every year. What has happened is now in the one-and-dones in men's basketball, you've seen that where kids come through 1 year,
right,
and they play and a team wins a national championship and the kids move on. I would really like to see a study done on how many of those kids actually go back to that university to finish, because normally these kids move on, and their goal is set on not necessarily achieving or obtaining a college degree, but earning a living. And I truly feel this, that if this does happen in intercollegiate athletics, you're going to see this beginning to happen in the dramatic arts on university campuses, in music on university campuses. It is already happening somewhat where schools are negotiating for research assistants from the graduate level. And, and that further creates a greater divide between the haves and the so-called have-nots. And I am against it. I do feel that these schools will try to use that as a leverage ploy to say, look, if you can't get your support from the conference and this, then what we're going to do is we're going to have to, do something else for another conference. And I don't think it'll happen on an individual school basis. I think you're going to see conferences moving to do this, much like the Big Ten has said that we're going to step away from playing football championship subdivision teams. And what they're really saying is that we'll probably try to create a conference-wide initiative with another mid-level conference. And so you're going to have conferences putting pressure on smaller conferences to either join with us in this or get left out. But the funny thing about NCAA legislation, 1 year NCAA will pass a rule, and then the rule will be so bad that the next year there's a rush to pass a rule to declare that rule null and void. And so it's not a perfect science. Right. It is all about generating revenue for these universities. That's what it really is about. Because athletic directors now are charged with, the bottom line. You're seeing good people, good coaches losing their jobs, not because they had losing seasons, but maybe because the fan base did not appreciate the style of offense or defense that they employed, and they had a significant drop in ticket sales. And so it's about marketing. It's about promotion, and it's about making as much money as you can. And then there are universities like us and our leagues and smaller conferences that really want to make sure that the experience that the universities offer the student-athletes will always be a learning experience, one that they can leave there with fond memories, with a sustainable degree that gets them employment in the marketplace, and also it gives them the opportunity to cultivate these young alums to give back once they leave. That's really what it's about. So it's about the haves versus the have-nots, and them utilizing any means necessary to influence us to help them make more money. Because, Mickey, if you pay a college football player, Title IX says you got to afford the same opportunities to the underrepresented sex. So we're going to have to pay a volleyball player, women's golf student athlete. Those things are going to come. And now we're talking about equity.
1, 2, talk that talk.
When it comes to being better, what's better? Being better or worse? Better! Okay, and what are you better at?
I'm better at telling jokes.
Okay, let's see what you got.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Queen.
Queen who?
Queen, my dishes, please.
Queen.
It's Queen to make it funny.
He doesn't get it.
It's not complicated. Better is better. And AT&T is the nation's fastest and now most reliable 4G LTE network.
me today, I have Gilda Cobb-Hunter from the South Carolina House of Representatives, District 66 in Orangeburg County. Been there since 1992, and that's the home of the South Carolina State University Bulldogs. She's been in that position for over 20 years. She's the first person of color, male or female, to lead a legislative caucus, elected to House Minority Leader, chair for the National Black Caucus of State Legislators, served on numerous boards, and active in her support of South Carolina State University, and a member of the FAMU Rattler Boosters. Gilda, welcome to Insights.
Hey, Mick, it is so good to be on air talking with you. Let me start by saying congratulations to you on the creation of Insight. I love people with vision, and I want to commend you for having a vision and following through on that vision in spite of. And, you know, there are a whole lot of things that come after in spite of, but real hats off to you for Insight and what you are able to do with this program, and I wish you much success in the future.
Gilda, thank you. That means a lot. Gilda was one of my bid whist partners back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
You had to watch it now, because she'll put a trump up her sleeve and act like she ain't know how it got there. So you always
well, Mickey, you know that's the way we roll in Gifford, Florida, Indian River County.
Okay, I know about that. I'm right up the road at Cocoa in Brevard County, so you know I know.
I hear you, homeboy.
Oh, I'm telling you. What I wanted to get your opinion on was some of these guarantee games, and I know that you're an avid supporter of athletics and a big football fan. What is your thought on programs that play these guarantee games in football and to increase revenue for the athletic departments? What is your thought on that?
Well, and Mickey, it's interesting because I've got really two opinions, and I guess your listening audience would say, well, typical politician can take either side of the argument. And let me start by saying that I can certainly understand why a FAMU, an SC State, a Grambling, why Southern, why these schools, notice how I did go to the SWAC and add to just to be balanced.
That's good.
But I can appreciate why the schools have to enter into contracts with these guarantee games. The revenue is not there to support athletics, to support the football program, to support these HBCUs in a way that makes it unnecessary. So I understand the rationale for guarantee games. I don't believe, though, that we as alumni, as supporters, as friends of HBCUs are doing our part to support these institutions. So we're the reason that these schools have to go out and sign up for these guarantee games. And my challenge to all of us out here across the country, across the globe, who are products of HBCUs, who are supporters of HBCUs and friends, what we need to do is step up to the plate and do a better job of financially supporting these institutions so that they don't have to go out and do these guarantee games. I am always so afraid. For example, I watched FAMU and Ohio State last week and was just praying that the Rattlers didn't get hurt in that game and get injured in a way that's going to impact the rest of the season and the rest of their schedule. You know, we start this weekend facing our MEAC schedule. So my point is, if you look at the black community and you look at how we are so supportive of the black church, black preachers, you know, and I don't want to get all the preachers and the church folk all riled up, but quite frankly, the black church is the one institution in our community that we have been faithfully supporting. And I'm just saying, you know what? It's time for us to spread the love. It's time for us to reach out to other institutions in our community that are just as important as the black church. And those institutions are our HBCUs, because were it not for them, a lot of us would not be where we are.
Okay, now let me ask you this, Gilda. What bothers you the most? The fact that we play the games, or when you hear the score of the game?
Well, I have to say, interesting. I'm embarrassed by the score. We've never been beaten like that, and I think I speak for a lot of Rattlers and say, oh, my God. I just don't want – I want us shutting other people out. I don't want us to be shut out. But by the same token, I recognize we were up against a Big Ten caliber school. Big Ten is not the SEC, but they are still a top quality.
Don't start with that Big Ten SEC now.
Well, listen, I'm in the SEC. Go Cox. So I've got to be. I'm just being honest.
Okay.
That's not the question, but listen, the Big Ten, please, there's no comparison between the Big Ten and the SEC. It's just no comparison. But
you get ready to start another argument.
I don't care, but I'm just saying, all these Big Ten people, they know the real deal. And you just look at the quality in the schools in the SEC. It's no comparison. Mm-hmm. Even well, that's not what you asked me, though, Mickey. I'm sorry, that's your fault.
That's okay.
Mick, here's my point. Mm-hmm. Even though Ohio State shut us out, now people got to understand. Even though we aren't on that caliber, but still, the Rattlers were at a disadvantage. We've got offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator that have been out of commission. We've got a head coach that's been a little hamstrung because of lack of personnel. So I think, and I'm not making excuses, even though I am, I'm just trying to frame this particular shutout to say that I think if we were operating on all cylinders, we would have at least scored. I was very disappointed that we were shut out, but I just, that's all right. We still Rattlers, and we're going to come back, and we've got to have faith, and we can't lose faith, and we've got to support our team regardless. I don't think anybody in their right mind expected us to go to Columbus and blow them out, but we certainly were hopeful that we would at least get a score and more than one first down.
And see, actually, we speak about the HBCUs, but the problem existed across.
The smaller schools.
Right. I mean, FIU lost to Louisville 72-0.
Right.
Louisiana Monroe lost to Baylor 70-7. Troy lost to Mississippi State 62-7. So and some of those like Troy had moved up to the FBS.
Yeah, I remember when we played Troy State. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you're right. It is not just the HBCUs, but as a product of one and as a loyal Rattler, my comments and my concern has focused on HBCUs and these guaranteed games. And the same is true with South Carolina State. I mean, I'm here in Orangeburg, and the Bulldogs have had some games like that. And it's just a matter of lack of support. And so I try to focus on stay in my lane. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that those folks, the FIUs and all those other small schools, the smaller independents, probably can make the same argument about the lack of support from alumni and supporters. I just know for a fact when it comes to Florida A&M, South Carolina State, that alumni and supporters have not stepped up to the plate, in my opinion, in the way that we need to. And keep in mind, Mickey, I am a legislator, so I do know a little something about state funding for higher education. And it's true in Florida. It's true here in South Carolina. My colleagues in Mississippi and Alabama and throughout HBCU country have the same argument, and that is the state does not fund higher ed in a way that is halfway equitable or sufficient. And I'm just simply saying that is true now. And it will remain true for some time. And we've got to stop sitting around waiting and begging state government to fund higher ed. We've got, as alumni and supporters, we've got to step up, and we've got to breach the gap, stand in the breach and do what we need to do as far as making sure that our HBCUs are viable and are still there to provide the opportunities for those who are coming after us as they did for us.
1, 2, talk that talk.
This game's about feel. I remember at my best, there'll be nights when the whole world would slow down and get very quiet. I could hear the ball bounce, and nothing existed outside of this game. What these young bloods have to understand, that this game has always been and will always be about buckets.
That's what I've been trying to tell him, B.
Drew, you're a real baller. Gotta get out there and put your team back together again. Go find them.
Today I have Coach Bill Hayes. His level of accomplishments, I think, are really mind-blowing. He's the first black football coach in the ACC. He was a running back coach at Wake Forest. He led Winston-Salem State to 3 CIAA titles and 2 Division II playoff appearances. At North Carolina A&T, he won 3 MEAC titles again. I guess 3 is Coach Hayes' magic number. And again, he had 2 1AA playoff appearances. He has almost 200 collegiate wins. He's in North Carolina Central Hall of Fame, the Winston-Salem State Athletic Hall of Fame, North Carolina A&T Sports Hall of Fame, CIAA Hall of Fame. We didn't need to call him Bill Hayes Hall of Fame. And 2 years at Winston-Salem State, he's produced 11 conference championships, also selected as one of the top 5 HBCU athletic directors in the country. Welcome to Insights, Coach Hayes.
Hey, glad to be here talking with you, Mickey. And actually, we got 14 championships since I've been back up here.
Oh, see, I like Coach. He just get right to the point and tell you what it is.
Yeah, my chancellor got 14 championship rings. Hell, he ain't got but 10 fingers. And he got 14, trying to get 14 rings on 10 fingers, boy.
Coach, tell me, this past week, there was a big, there were a large number of games that were played with these guaranteed games. And you've been on both ends. You've been on it all the way around. What is your thought on institutions and schools that end up playing the guarantee games, and has your thought on it changed at all from being when you were coaching to now that you're an administrator in charge of raising money?
Well, I'm not going to put my coach in a bad position. That's first.
Okay.
I'm not going to put him in a bad position. So then when they give me the budget, if the budget's not what it ought to be, then the onus is on me and my team to raise the money to fill the gap. I'm not going to make him fill the gap by getting his fanny beat on. Now, I don't want to criticize people who do that because that's their method. That just happens not to be my method. So the onus is on me. If I need $1.5 million, I need $2 million, then I want to make a plan early on so I can close that gap. And I'll get out here and hustle with my staff and go to alumni meetings and talk to folk. Because people don't realize most states don't fund athletics. You got to raise that money or get that money at the gate. So the onus is on the athletic director and his team to find ways to fill that gap. And you know what's coming up. You know back in March that the gap's going to be there to pay those kids scholarships and bills in September. So you got ample time to get out and shake that tree and find that money. Yeah, golf tournaments, all kind of events. Mickey, we had 25 events when I was down there. We tried real hard to close that gap. Remember? Mm-hmm. And we didn't But then there are those people who can go out and make $500,000 playing a guaranteed game, or even more sometimes. And sometimes when you feel like you've got a good team and you can compete, then you go out and you do that. I just never been involved with that situation very much. I know when I was at FAM, I was talking to Georgia for about $750 to come up and play, but I thought Joe's team was pretty strong at that period, and it was getting better, and he needed to get over the hump and financially, so he could do some more things. And so we talked about it, but we never did. We never pulled the trigger.
Well, I know you're proactive, because you remember we had a map and had the city devised up and went door to door, knocking on the doors of business and corporations.
That's right. Every Monday we hit the street.
Sure did. You said
knocking
you
on
didn't
every.
Want anybody. Go ahead, Coach.
We knocked on every door of every business in Tallahassee, giving them an opportunity to partner with us. And if we could have really got our vision out there, where if alumni had seen that sticker that we were putting on that door, we put a sticker on every door of you forgot, and everybody that supported us. Mm-hmm. Now, if our alumni would go to that door and look and not see that sticker and turn and walked away, we would have been a lot more effective, because their buying power controls our sponsorships, doesn't it?
It sure does.
So if they walk in there and say, look, do you support FAMU athletics, or you support Winston-Salem athletics? If you do, I'll spend my money. If you don't, Saranada.
Mm-hmm.
And then we become more effective, and we get stronger. But sometimes people get amnesia, and you end up being out there a lot of times by yourself.
You're right, Coach. That sticker was a rattletize. That's what it said.
Yeah, we're gonna rammatize. We're gonna rattletize.
That's what it was. Rattletize.
We're gonna rattletize Tallahassee. That's what we had on the little sticker. Good. So if you've been rattletized, then we're gonna partner. We're gonna shop with you. Mm-hmm. But if you don't have a rattletized sticker on your door, then our fans and alumni need to go somewhere else.
That's right. That's just what we did, Coach. You're right. You got a good memory.
I know.
Every Monday we walk in that, knocking on doors.
That's right. Came back in, gathered all the information, did a follow-up, and we got better.
Sure did, Coach. But you said something that's really key. Again, earlier in the interview, you talked about the fact that there's a shortage, that was on you and your staff to get out and raise some of that money. You took that onus of that right away.
Oh, yeah. I don't need to. My job isn't my job is to hire coaches, and my job is to give them direction when they need it, but I don't need to police them. That's why we meet once a week. And so the rest of the time, what am I doing? I make sure we in compliance, but really I've got to grow the program. I've got to guide. My job is to guide and direct the athletic program. And what better way to guide it and direct it is to get out and get what it needs to be successful. You can't guide a ship that's broke.
Now you're right about that, Coach. You're right about that, Coach.
Yeah.
Coach, tell me, what is, this NCAA session is coming up in January. It looks like it's going to shape up to be one that may change the course of the NCAA. The major schools, the Powerhouse 5 conferences act like they want to start their own league and their own division and pay student athletes, and they want to be in a position that they kind of control their own destiny more, and they're going to try to force the smaller schools to vote with them, and using guarantee games is just one of the leverage points that if you don't do it, then we're not going to play these guarantee games. What is your thought on paying student athletes and what these power conferences are trying to do to some of the smaller leagues?
Well, Mickey, only 10% of all the schools only 10% of all the schools in America make a profit. Mm-hmm. That's first. So I can't pay him if I don't have the money to pay him. I can't bankrupt the university paying kids a salary. Right. I can't bankrupt the athletic department paying kids a salary. So those guys are going. My thinking is that 10% is going to pull out and go their own way, and they're going to have those television contracts and the billions of dollars that they have, and they're going to do their own thing. The rest of us are probably going to be doing the same thing. That's always trying to find enough money to make sure that kid's got his scholarship paid, and he got his books, and he got somewhere to stay, and that type thing. We got a nice practice field that's safe, and we got enough trainers out there to make it practice safe, and all those kinds of things. That's a job. When the state don't give you any money to operate on, when you have to raise your own money to operate on, that's a job. And, you know, I remember down at FAMU, what did we have? That wonderful lady trainer that we had, Miss A. But Miss A, I mean, we really needed 5 trainers for the number of student athletes we had. But Miss A, God bless her soul, she would work from sun up to sundown with her student helpers. But it's gotten past that now. But liability is so great. Here at Winston-Salem, we got 3 trainers and we 2 short. And so, you know, the liability questions in athletics, and now making sure you're in compliance with all the things that make your kids safe, it's expensive, very expensive. Somebody was saying the other day, we got a $4 million program, and our counterparts, Wake Forest across town, got a $48 million program. They got the same number of students, but we got $4 million. They got $48 million.
Right. Big.
I guess that's equitable, huh?
I guess that's equitable, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. I got you, Coach. I see. You know, we've had that discussion.
And you got and FAMU, you know, you trying to get $8 million. 10 million, you need 13 million, and your people across town for Florida State got 100 million. You know, what's right about that?
Right, Coach.
Their people give, and we beg.
1, 2, talk that talk.
You think you colder than me? Turn on the radio, me. Turn on the TV, me. Turn on the movies, me. So what you got?
Coors Light?
Don't mean nothing.
Ice Cube is cold, but Coors Light is super cold.
Oh, it's on now.
Frost brewed Coors Light, the world's most refreshing beer.
With us today, again, we have John Grant, CEO of the 100 Black Men of Atlanta. John, welcome to a repeat performance on Insights.
Well, you know, I feel fortunate, Mickey, that you got me back twice, and I am delighted to be here as a part of your Insight program. Thank you for having me.
Tell me, John, the hot subject now is about these guarantee games and everything. What is your thought or feel about the guarantee games and the fact that so many of our smaller institutions play them? What is your thought and feel on that?
Well, you know, the interesting thing about you know, our programs at our HBCUs, our football programs, is that, you know, we've really gotten to a point where, you know, guarantee games, especially guarantee games against Division I schools, and that's where my really comments are going to lie and focus on. Division I schools, those guarantee games are necessary because of the funding that the programs need. You know, and that actually is a direct result, Mickey, in my personal view, is because of the lack of support that the programs receive from alumni of universities who fail to, you know, whether it's buying season tickets to the programs, whether it's investing in the booster programs and the booster clubs, or whether it's just, you know, just being overall going to games. We see a big trend at HBCU games now where people will go to the games and they sit outside and tailgate, which offers no real, value to the institutions. And as a result, the programs suffer and then our schools are required to take these measures to fund the programs and provide the resources necessary. So the big responsibility, at least in my mind, rests in people who are alumni of these institutions but are not supporting the programs the way that we should.
Okay, now you yourself are a graduate of a HBCU, North Carolina A&T, right?
I am.
And so that, I mean, for us to discuss it, sometimes it helps, that we've attended it, so you have a real affinity and a love for it. And a lot of times when we say things, it's out of love for our institutions and the fact that we want to see it get better.
Absolutely. And I think, the reason that we, again, put on the Atlanta Football Classic, yes, it raises money for our program, Project Success, but more importantly, it also becomes a strong funding vehicle and a platform for these universities, the HBCUs that participate with us, to actually compete and have a stage. They have the exposure because the games are televised, but they also are playing on a platform where they have an equal opportunity to win. I believe, again, personally for me, that the student athlete, a football player, when he takes the gridiron, wants an opportunity to win, deserves an opportunity to compete and win. And so anytime we can create the structures, as we've always have, to provide that platform, we owe that to the athlete, we owe it to the university, and to the fans who are wanting to support the school. So, we've raised, through the Atlanta Football Classic, millions of dollars for our participating schools over the 25 years of our existence. We are making the contribution and creating the stage, but we also require and need, fans to come out and support it, to keep it going. Otherwise, on Saturdays, you look at any Division I program, look at their stands, the stands are full. Those are people who are there to support the schools, and we really just need to be in the mindset to do the same thing. It's not necessarily a chastise, but it's a truth. And it's a truth that we have to face that is critical to the survival of our institutions and the programs that they put on.
1, 2, talk that talk.
I'm waking up to ash and dust. I wipe my brow and I sweat my rust. I'm breathing in the chemicals. I'm waking up. I feel it in my bones.
Hello? What up, Dre? Hold up, I gotta finish something. Talk to me.
It's time for your meeting with the coach in the coach's office.
Welcome. Now come have a seat in the coach's office. What we need to talk about today are the guarantee games. Money games. Some people on the boards, they even call them prostitution games. Major sports announcers make fun of the scores, and some of the supporters are embarrassed and even rally to cry out and scream against the playing of these games. There are so many sides to this coin, it's almost like a trapezoid. I want you to understand a little bit more about why we do what we do. As a basketball coach at a Division I institution in both men and women's basketball, I hated to play guarantee games. I hated that I had to do it. Hated it. I remember complaining one time that no one cared if the basketball team played 9, 10, or 11 games on the road to make money, but what would happen if the football team had to play them? Everybody'd be upset. Well, now everybody's upset. The rationale I was given then was that in basketball, Division I is Division I. There's no separation like there is in football. I didn't like the response, but it was an accurate one, even though I still didn't like it. We did have one university president in the MEAC that said, we don't need the money, so don't play any guarantee games. If they won't come to your place to play you, don't play them. All of the basketball coaches loved that attitude from that president. Guarantee games are those contests that a university pays a team to come and play them. They're guaranteed to make a certain amount of money. Sometimes they have a team that drops off the schedule and they need a home game badly. Sometimes they want a home game to be able to drive up ticket sales just to be able to have a home game schedule so that your fans don't have to travel. Sometimes they just seek an easy opponent that would allow their team to work out the kinks before they play a more difficult conference schedule. On the other side of that coin, that trapezoid I was telling you about, teams take those games for the money to make their budget. In basketball, you play those games early and usually lose early before you go into the conference schedule in January, and usually the coach chooses that schedule. Sometimes the AD tells the coach he has to bring in a certain amount of money, and if they bring in more than that, they can keep a percentage for their own budget. In football, the AD usually makes the schedule and tries to make as much money as possible to be able to provide funds for a budget that is already strapped in terms of bringing in enough revenue. There are less than 10 schools that make enough money to show a profit. The rest usually balance out their budgets by contributions from the university itself. As an athletic administrator, again, that trapezoid coin I'm telling you about, I understood the need to play them, but my hate was lessened somewhat, but not a lot. It still was a strong dislike, but in some cases a necessity. So the money that they make from the guarantee games are needed. There are places where money is contributed in varying amounts from various places, but it's hard to take in enough money from contributions to offset the money from those games. You have heard from one of our athletic directors who feel that it's incumbent upon him to raise additional monies if the budget is running low and additional funds are needed. Another one who tries to schedule games where his teams are able to be competitive. Through the cries of many alumni and supporters, you can rest assured that none of the university administrators who scheduled these games felt that their teams would be a part of Blowout City. You will never be able to convince me of that. They felt like their teams would at least be competitive. Yes, we need to contribute more funding, no doubt. Unfortunately, many of our schools went to Division I, but our fans stayed Division II. Do we need to do a better job marketing? No doubt. Unfortunately, we need more money to be able to do it more effectively. Do we need to play guarantee games? We don't want to, but the money is needed. Even if we improve in other areas of giving, there are still so many needs and things that we have to improve on to be competitive. We need upgrading facilities, better tutors, more effective study halls, summer school opportunities, better athletic facilities, more money for recruiting. They are all needed. And if we ever get any extra money, every athletic director has a list of things that are needed. Unfortunately, it is a long list. Thanks to the crew, Alvin Hollins, our director and sometimes co-host, Clayton Smith, our co-host, Arnett Moore, our music producer, Julio, the voice of one, our blogger, and our producer, Gerald Tooks of G Squared Productions. Talk to you soon. INSiiGHTS.